Question mark.
We got people in the chat room.
Dan. You do that.
You got people telling you need a new computer in the chat room. I need a new computer too, but this one wasn't on me.
I got words for those people.
Oh, yeah? Are they nice words? Are they the best words?
They are. The 7 words that are not allowed on TV.
R.I.P. George Carlin. I had just, Brew and I, we obviously text a lot, probably too much. And I don't know. Are you, can we like do a Google Chrome or a Google Hangout handshake here where if we win some of our leagues, which I assume we'll take home at least a couple of them, we're going to spend the winnings and we're going to get like fancy gaming computers so that these shows are a little bit simpler. I know I'm blocking my face. I got to fix the framing on this thing. There we go. My ugly mug a little bit closer. What do you think?
Is it even the gaming computers though? Like Consolidated Communications out of Sacramento. Blessed thy name. They suck. Like they're terrible. They it's funny. They even came out to the studio where they pitched our building on internet. And the old CEO, I forget his name, ended up calling me to apologize for all of this, but came out and pitched all this bandwidth and all this stuff. And then it turned out they couldn't deliver. And it's the same in my neighborhood. Yeah, got our whole building signed up. And then we're like, oh, oops, sorry. And it was funny. They pulled the "we didn't say that" card. And it was like, oh, yeah, you did. You said it here in this email here, and this email here, and this email here.
Great. It's always great to have something in writing, isn't it? That's the greatest.
Just Bob Udell was the name of the CEO.
Bob Robert.
It sounds like the guy that runs the Motel 6, which incidentally is another terrible organization out there.
Tom Bodette.
Tom Bodette. Yeah, we would leave the lights on. Tom Bodette. But no, in my neighborhood, we have fiber. I do a lot of stuff out of my house, and you can't get much faster than fiber. And we are constantly shut down when everybody gets home from work to about 9 p.m. dinner time, end of dinner time. It's just done. There's nothing we can do about it. And
yeah, that's
short of digging our own trenches and putting our own fiber in for the neighborhood, which I might do. That would be cool.
I mean, I got my beef. I had my beef for that like day and a half where there was just no internet or television in my neighborhood. But overall, our bandwidth is rolling. Remember when I did that speed test? I feel like your eyes opened and your mouth dropped agape. The speed test over here is pretty good. So I think it's the actual speed of my machine and not my internet that freaks things out a little bit. This computer is from 2010. And it runs pretty well, actually. I've added RAM. I've added, whatever you can do sort of easily. But it's probably time to get a new tower. I'm a tower man. I got a laptop right here.
Crazy, Dan.
It's just out of view. You can't see it, but a laptop is right here in front of me so that I can tweet during the show. But yeah, I like tower. That's bang for your buck, man. That is the motto of my heritage. Is bang for your buck. So I'm gonna.
What can you get for $500 in a tower nowadays, Dan?
Probably
you power the internet.
Yeah, I think I could probably run the entire neighborhood's computing on a tower for $500, right? Because everybody's just dicking around on the internet anyway. I can do Twitter, all y'all. How's your machine feeling right now? You ready to start this bad boy?
No, but sure, Dan. Let's start this thing.
No, but yes. That is really the hoop ball motto.
Well, that's not the hoop ball motto. Let's be real.
And hoop ball motto is, and we can say this because I'm not officially recording yet. Fuck it. Let's go.
That is the actual motto of hoop ball.
Yeah. That is the motto. Or I said on an episode
here in Silicon Valley is fall forward or fail quickly or fail fast, whatever that is.
Yeah, we shortened that to fuck it, let's go. I also, on a show earlier this week, pioneered the potential hoop ball motto of get your ball hooped.
Where did you pioneer that?
I threw it into a show. I decided that we need to get t-shirt. We got t-shirts, right? We got the t-shirts. Well, the next iteration, I think, is gonna have the HB.
Well, we don't got the t-shirts yet. This is actually something my wife is wearing the hoop ball t-shirt all around and kind of chastising me. I don't even have my t-shirt.
We need to get her to model that bad boy on a Friday show at some point.
It was funny. She's nervous. She sometimes talks trash, like she wants to show up on the show. And she's not a nervous person at all. Like she's kind of a star of the show type person. And so I'll try to get her in here on a show.
Give the push.
But I think that might be a little much for her. She might freak out.
Will it make her feel any better? And I don't know I think my camera's pointed too high. Reminds me of that line from Major League. Too high. It's too high.
Who says too high?
Too high. But Gumshoe is
is Gumshoe in the house? I don't have you on camera, Dan. I'm sorry.
The official hoop ball dog is Dan Besbris' unmade bed, and there's Gummy. There's my girl. Hey, Gumshoe, can you pop your head up?
We'd have my dog as the other official dog of hoop ball, but my dog's terrible.
Yeah, Gummy's the best. All right, I think we can officially start this bad boy. The 20 some odd people that are watching right now are like, what are these two idiots doing? Well, don't forget everybody.
Every day, Dan. That's every day.
Get your ball hooped.
Get your ball hooped.
In 3, 2, 1. What's happening, everybody? Welcome to the official start now of Fantasy NBA Today live on Friday. It's Fun Shirt Friday, and my shirt's not that fun. I'm Dan Besbris. He is Aaron Bruski. Get your ball hooped on this Friday morning. But I'm bringing it. I'm pioneering. What can I say? I'm a man of action. We got a lot to cover on this bad boy. It's a live YouTube show. We do it every Friday. We got a chat room rumbling along. There are about 1 million questions, and we haven't even started yet. We have a question that got auto-hidden by YouTube, even though it was simply asking if people should add Danilo Gallinari for the playoffs. But you know what? I actually think that is sort of a slur in the fantasy world right now. So I'm going to let that chat come through, and we're going to get this bad boy going. But first, Mr. Bruski, El Arquitecto. What's happening, my man? I see you rocking a little culture on that hoodie today.
Yeah, we got, it's Fun Shirt Friday for me because I found this thing. It was just like hidden or lost or something. I don't know. My wife just takes things and throws them away. And got this in Venice, which was a very, very touristy thing to do. It's a good sweater, but it's kind of made of cheap material. But it does make me feel cultured, Dan. I have traveled outside of the United States. There are countries everywhere that are not shitholes.
Yeah, I don't think I'm even going to censor that bad boy this time.
No, why? It's been all over the news.
Yeah, I didn't realize that was actually like radio friendly, but I've been watching CNN a bit the last 24 hours. I've never seen the word.
This is what we're teaching our kids, Dan. Hey, there are countries out there that are not shitholes. Yeah. Imagine that.
And Brew is wearing a hoodie, so represent. Well, you look fly this morning. You're ready to rock. How you feeling?
You good, Dan. I think today I'm getting over the hump. I had that sinus infection for 2 weeks, following a flu for 1 week. I have not been on allergy meds for 2 days. I went to my 10-step program to get off my allergy meds, and it was good. It was good. We all learned a lot.
Who did you have to apologize to? That's what I want to know. In your 10-step program, who did you have to apologize to?
To the listeners.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. So welcome everybody into the chat room. Appreciate everybody getting on early. The way we normally run these Friday shows, and I don't see any reason to change it because they've been seemingly a decent hit. They get better listenership than the other shows, so we'll take that for whatever it's worth. I've got a list of things that I made up. I went through every box score from Tuesday through Thursday and looked at all the teams and tried to remember what all the fantasy storylines were for the week. And I'm going to hit Bruski with those. It's about 10 things, which is actually kind of a small list compared to the last couple of weeks. And after we get through that usually takes 20 to 30 minutes. We will turn our attention to the chat room, and we will answer all questions that are not ridiculously hyper-specific. So if you're like, hey, man, I got a 24-team league, and I'm looking to stashing Nicholas Brusino, we're probably not going to get to that question. But if you drop a little hey, 12-team league, who do you guys like more rest of season? So-and-so versus so-and-so B. We're going to nail all those bad boys. So everybody seems to be following those rules lately. I think we'll probably end up hitting every question if time permitting, I guess. And with that, we can get this bad boy started. But first, Brew, what do we need to know about hoopball these days? What's the haps? I've been hammering hoopball fantasy on shows this week. I know everybody needs to make the transition over to some of our more focused Twitter accounts. Is that kind of the thing you want people to know right now?
Yeah, I guess if I could have an ask is for everybody to go out and follow these accounts. These are, especially on the team side, they're the beginnings of the next stages of hoopball. Some of these guys, like Kevin Brand covering the Wolves, like I read his stuff and I go, wow, this guy's got a future in the NBA. So that the Lakers, the Kings, each have their own Twitter accounts. Fantasy has its own Twitter account. You probably already followed if you're following this show, but Fantasy is where all the blurbs will be. And we're really pivoting into more of a, we jokingly call it BSPN, but, more of an all-encompassing basketball website with news, stats, information, non-fantasy stuff, really pivoting to try to keep with the times and go where the industry is going, or go there first before the others get there would be ideal. So, that's what's going on. I've been looking at a lot of site mock-ups, and I'm very confident of a hoop ball changeover. I don't know when it will be. It could be very soon. It could be in a couple months. We've got a 2-tier rollout, so look forward in the future to having stats and all sorts of fun stuff all over this website, and it really getting brought into the 19th century, because as we jokingly like to clap on our own website here, the first thing we did when building hoopball is we really wanted to just make sure we were focused on content, getting the rankings correctly, making sure you guys are winning your fantasy leagues. Of course, that's the first and most important thing before getting all fancy with the website and stuff like that, because you really don't know what you want to do in the beginning anyway. So we are at that pivot point. It's tiring, but it's very fulfilling at the same time. Yeah,
I agree. So follow at Hoopball Fantasy. Aaron and I, it's just our names on Twitter, at Dan Besbris, at Aaron Bruski. As I always say, if you can spell it, you can find us. But then we got the team-specific accounts that are popping up here and there. You got at Hoopball Lakers with a podcast and written coverage. We got Hoopball Kings with a podcast and written coverage. We got at Hoopball Wolves, which is doing some fine work these days at the team, actually. I got to give credit where credit's due. I clowned on them when they were playing basically dead even with all the worst teams in the NBA. But if they could have drawn up a schedule, this is exactly how it would have gone. The Wolves getting a chance to sort of settle in against generally bad teams. And now they're taking their act against better ones. And they've had a chance to build a little bit of momentum and chemistry. So
they have good players. I mean, that's the nexus of the Wolves. They're good. They just got to not die now.
Well, things seem to turn for the better when Jimmy Butler got control of that team. Is that fair to say? Seems like that's what's been happening lately.
Yeah, he played nice for the first couple weeks and then was like, you guys are all a bunch of chumps. It's my team. And then that was that. No, they're good. I mean, they do a lot of dumb stuff, but they'll be in the mix in a soft West. And yeah, I said it. The West is soft.
Wow.
Yeah.
Maybe that's
blazing hot takes, Dan. Blazing hot takes.
That's warm, man. That's drying my hair quicker than I
warm take.
All right, I got a quickie for you here to start off the questions. Delon Wright, he had an opportunity here with Kyle Lowry out, and presumably he may continue to have that opportunity for the short term. But sort of the Lowry thing seemed like everybody dodged a little bit of a bullet there. And he didn't play particularly well in a game where Toronto scored, I think it was 285 points against the Cleveland Cavaliers. Last week, you mentioned him as, maybe like a top 110-ish kind of guy rest of season. Have you moved off of that position in any way?
Not really. I mean, he'll get helped by whatever time Kyle Lowry misses. He's probably going to have some sort of a struggle at least one time between now and the end of the season. I mean, only the best players don't have that type of a struggle. So you might see him struggle and you might get a crack at him in the next month or so. And I would highly recommend trying to get him on the end of your bench if he was to ever get let loose in the event of a major injury to somebody like an injury-prone Kyle Lowry, he could then settle into that possible top 75 range because he's got all the athletic tools. He could get you a 111. And from there, the questions are, is he just going to get red hot in a given category? Is he going to go rebound like crazy? Is he going to score like crazy? Or is he going to have some good assists? So, yeah, he's a good one. And unfortunately, he just plays in a place with a lot of good players.
Yeah. Toronto, do they fall into an underrated team this year? I feel like nobody's talking about the Raptors, and they look better than ever.
I kind of wince a little bit at the narratives of like Dwayne Casey has changed and this and that, and because they have changed, but let's see him and the team change in the playoffs when the defense tightens up and you're playing the same team up to 7 times and there's game plans that take away your first, second, and third best things. They have moved more towards a modern offense. They've tried to get away from isolation ball. This is as much on the players as it is on Dwayne Casey, but it's a collective mindset that they've had of old school basketball versus new school basketball. And you guys know me. I'm not this big new school guy where I just completely eschew the old school stuff, but it's really killed them in the playoffs. I think that they are underrated. I think that they over the hump of that particular issue in order to really be a threat to upset the Cavs, but they're better. And you got to take your lumps in this league in the playoffs really to get to that next level as a squad. So if they're going to do something crazy, I do think it's going to be this year. And I do think they're heading in that direction. So they're definitely a team to watch.
Anyone else on that team that's worth looking at? Van Fleet, Siakam, Pirtle, any of these guys that could actually leap into the conversation, or is it all just too inconsistent at this point?
I was going to say no, but then you changed my answer to yes, because it is going to be too inconsistent. It's yes. None of them.
Yeah, that's what I was figuring too. All right, I'm going to try to do the easier ones and ramp up to the hard, but I might misstep here, so I honestly don't know. Jordan Bell seems like he's suffered a little bit of a downturn here with the Warriors. They've sort of pulled back on him a little. I've actually watched some games where you can see guys like KD and Dre talking to Bell almost between every play, where it's like, all right, here's where you needed to be. I know you can leap through the air the way that most humans can't, but you also need to be in the right place at the right time. Are these just growing pains for a young guy? I mean, can you roster him while he's going through this?
I'm glad you asked that, Dan. No, the Bell thing it's a real cool numbers thing because you get to really dive deep into the numbers. If you look at his last 2 weeks, he's slid down from the 20 minutes that he enjoyed over the last month, and with time of during the time that Draymond Green was out, to about 16.7, if I recall correctly. So you saw some slippage in stats just naturally because he's playing 20% less minutes. You saw some slippage in points, boards, and assists. You also saw some slight erosion in blocks, and that little tiny, 3-minute dip was enough to move him from top 100 to top 145. That's just a massive shift for what really effectively is not a whole lot of difference on the court. So what we learned, I think, is that he needs more than 16 minutes to be valuable, like right now, this second. He's always going to have stash value. He's always going to have that what if value if they just bring him back up to 20. And I think that's where they want him. And at 20 minutes per game, he's going to be able to get you top 100 value. So I do think there's a narrative or a reason to own him. If your team is in a pinch or in a shallow league, you might look at this and say, hey, 20 minutes is still risky. There's still a few ways this might not work out for him, and I'm not convinced that the big four are going to get hurt and suddenly open up this, big window for Jordan Bell. I think in a best case scenario, the Warriors say, hey, this guy can really help us win. We want to crank him up to 23, 24 minutes and really get the most out of him that we can right now. Also looking down the stretch, you might say, hey, what if the Warriors start sitting some guys? Those last few weeks in the playoffs could look pretty good for a guy like Jordan Bell. I'm inclined to tell you all to hold him and try to find somebody else on your roster to cut. But I do know the reality is that a lot of you guys have a lot of good rosters out there, and it might be tough to hold a guy like Jordan Bell. He's just somebody I'm keeping a buy recommendation on him probably from now until the end of the season.
Mario Hezonja. I don't know how he even crept onto the list, but he did. He's continued to actually do a little stuff, even though the Magic are starting to get a tiny bit healthier. I'm not super thrilled about it, but thought I'd toss him out there. What thoughts on Super Mario?
He's got about a 1 to 2 week timeline. Whenever Vucevic gets back, Mario's done for. So give him a look this week if you need a shooting guard, small forward type player that to fill some space in your lineup. That's about it.
All right, let's stay on the short term thing. DeAndre Jordan rolled his ankle last night after a pretty impressive dunk against the Kings. That guy's really something else, man. He's like 8 feet a leg, and he hurt himself. It's rare and weird. Montrezl Harrell played well for the Clippers. Is there a clear pickup here, though? I know we've talked about Willie Reed in the past, but he didn't really get it going last night. And then Milos Teodosic, it seems like maybe there's a little bit of an avenue there, but Blake Griffin came back kind of ahead of schedule, if you ask me, and he's sort of point forward for that team. So, I mean, is it really just Lou and Blake? Is that all you can trust?
You know, your wife might have something to say about this, but he looked like a guy that was concussed in that game last night.
He was.
Like at the end of the game, you know, kind of when these concussion tests, they test you when you're running and your baseline, and you know they want to get you to get fatigued so they can see how your brain reacts. And at the end of that game, he just looked like a boxer with no legs. And I mean, he let Zach Randolph shoot an uncontested 13-footer, and it was like, what? Like, I mean, I get you might be tired, but if he's that tired coming back into action, it makes you kind of wonder if he could have used another day of conditioning on the side. Anyway, Milos is, to me, I think he's going to probably be somebody I don't recommend you guys add too much, because got Austin Rivers coming back. He hasn't been able to get over the 3 money counting stats that I basically put as his baseline to have late round value. So that's an issue. You know, these other guys like Wallace. Wallace has been the flavor of the week. He basically is, a 1 to 2 week guy. CJ Williams did get hurt. So that I think he will have value for the next 1 to 2 weeks. So look at him as a short-term pickup. Jaboon Evans has been kind of reminding me a little bit of the way Spencer Dinwiddie last year came onto the scene. Like, had a bad game, 22 minutes, just 4 points, but a steal and 2 blocks, you know, finding ways to contribute in the box score. So they're going to be a mess. Harrell is an interesting one too, because in that matchup, the Kings they didn't have to. They wanted to play Costa Kufos a lot. And I think Doc saw that matchup and was like, Harrell can beat this guy anytime he wants, running up and down the floor. So they kept Harrell in the game instead of Willie Reed. Willie Reed, I think, will be the starting center in this next game if Jordan can't play. Willie Reed is somebody that I think you can probably just put in ink as a top 100 guy at a minimum if he's the starter getting 25 minutes per game. So I like Willie Reed as a speculative pickup while Jordan is out. It's just, how long will Jordan be out? And are we looking at a situation where the Clippers want Jordan to play before the trading deadline to prove to teams that there's nothing wrong with the ankle? Also, keeping in mind, Jordan doesn't want to leave LA. There's a weird wrinkle with that. Maybe he takes time off to scare other teams away. Maybe he comes back early just to, show that he's an LA guy. There's a lot of different angles there. I don't think the injury was serious, but a big man with an ankle injury can be a little bit worse than a typical one. And on the flip side, we just saw Brook Lopez come back from an ankle injury that looked pretty bad. So Jordan's been a durable guy. As the great Josh Lloyd would put it, you're durable until you're not. Jordan's been durable forever. I've been wondering when that durability would end. He has looked a little bit older this year. Willie Reed is my first pickup. Montrezl Harrell is my next pickup. I'm looking at Willie Reed as an asset for a post trade scenario, not in an injury scenario. So in this injury scenario, all these guys are just 1 to 2 weeks.
And here I thought that was an easy one.
It wasn't, Dan.
What about Dwayne Dedman? Is that an easier one?
Hey, pick him up.
All right. I'm glad we got an easy one. Hey, JaMychal Green showed up for a night and did something more than just his typical, like, world's most boring fantasy line. Can he do it again, is my question for you.
Pick him up.
Do you think he's actually going to do anything interesting? I can't trust the Grizzlies for, outside of Tyreek and Gasol these days.
Yeah, I think he'll be kind of top 100-ish. Like what I was saying earlier in the year when he didn't do it, that's where he would sit. These Grizzlies, I mean, I think this will be an interesting trade deadline because I do think that the Cavs have a number of players that they can get after in order to try to compete with the Warriors. DeMarcus Cousins, Marc Gasol. There's one I'm forgetting. But Marc Gasol is somebody like, you're stupid if you don't trade him and you're the Grizzlies. Like, you're just dumb. He's not long for your organization. He's seen how you worked. He's seen how you throw him under the bus because you guys want to get rid of the coach. He's out of there. And so JaMychal Green will now have more inside touches. He'll have more responsibilities. He'd be a safer bet as a top 100 player.
All right. A couple of okay. But let me do another one that might still fall into the easy category. Yogi Ferrell got the starting lineup for the Dallas Mavericks. Everybody that listens to this show knows how little I care for the Mavs on the fantasy side of things. They've been taking unbelievable care of the basketball. I'll give them that. They have 12 turnovers over the last 2 total games combined. They had a 4 and an 8 in a couple of back-to-back wins. So that's good. And obviously, for efficiency's sake, that's a good thing for fantasy. Yogi Ferrell looked good, getting a little speed into the starting lineup, as Rick Carlisle said, but it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of consistency with his game. He doesn't do much these days besides score, so long as Dennis Smith Jr. is out there. And then, it seems like Harrison Barnes, Wes Matthews, Dirk, whatever, guys are sort of alternating who has to do a little bit more. How much do you trust Yogi Ferrell? What do you think he could accomplish in this little spurt? If it sticks, even.
I don't trust any of those guys. I mean, even Dennis Smith Jr. Like, Smith Jr.'s got all the upside in the world, but efficiency's been his bugaboo, and all these guys are just late round guys as far as a projection goes, and it's not going to be fun. I think owning any of them, except for like JJ Barea, who is locked into his 21 minutes until whenever he gets hurt. Just not a lot of fun owning any of these Mavs. God, even Harrison Barnes. I have Harrison Barnes in a league, and it's the most boring thing in the world.
It's the worst. It's the worst. I have no Mavs anywhere. I just can't deal with it. Although I'll give Rick Carlisle credit because somebody asked him about the Lakers' 3-game win streak, and his reply was, "It's great coaching."
Rick.
Yeah, good old Jim Carrey in a basketball suit. All right, the Cavaliers. Let's move to some stuff with a little more meat on it. The Cavaliers are playing like a team that wants nothing to do with the regular season, and a team that's trying to work a previously injured potential high-level talent into their lineup for the first time in the middle of a basketball season when everybody else is sort of ready to go. They're not playing any defense. Isaiah Thomas looks intermittently slow and then intermittently fast. He got his shot blocked a bunch of times in Toronto, so that was like no lift yet kind of thing. And LeBron was caught screaming at his teammates during a timeout. This has all the makings of your classic Cleveland doesn't care for a couple of weeks, and then all of a sudden things get better. But what about from a fantasy standpoint? What does this mean for guys like LeBron, for Kevin Love, for Isaiah Thomas? We've already seen a slight dip in just a week, really, of IT being back in the lineup.
Pick them up. No, they're good. They're buy lows, all of them. Well, with the exception of LeBron. LeBron has been a sell high all year because once these guys get up to speed, he can finally take a little bit of time off. Kevin Love, all of them. Well, all of the relevant ones, I should say. Isaiah is a buy low. I think people might be scared right now that he's not going to fit in. Pick him up. Kevin Love is going to be fine in the pick and pop. Pick him up. Keep an eye on Jay Crowder. The Crowder's issues might be deeper than anybody, hopes to or cares to admit with the knee. He looks a little bit heavy set, but he's a guy that will play well with Isaiah. All this stuff is very standard by the book, first week type stuff. And I would expect probably on the other side of the All-Star break, like February, mid-February, they really make a run from February 15th to March 15th. And that might be a little bit of off timing because then they start to gear down for the playoffs. But that would be the time that you should really get excited about the Cavs.
Miami, we got to do our weekly check-in on the Heat, right? Isn't that that's sort of that's just a tradition here, a tradition like none other on our Friday show. Dion Waiters potentially out for the year. Sounds like he's opted for surgery, which, sucks for Dion. But in terms of the Heat, and I tweeted this, we always sort of thought addition by subtraction with this team. As some of those guys get thinned out, they can tighten up the rotation. It's also coinciding with Hassan Whiteside looking healthy for the first time probably since opening night. They're an interesting bunch. Bam Adebayo is playing well. He's been taking some minutes from Kelly Olynyk. James Johnson was suspended for a game, so there was that also on the table. And Wayne Ellington seems like he's actually carved out a significant role with this team because he's one of the few guys that you could call a guard or a wing that doesn't actually need the ball in his hands to create things, to make stuff happen. The Heat are interesting right now, aren't they? They've won a whole bunch of games in a row on top of everything else, and I think efficiency-wise, the advanced stats show them as being, well, basically just as good as they've looked. So what's the deal with Miami? Where's the fantasy value these days?
When you mentioned them, I start to cry. I dropped Bam Adebayo pretty much across the board last week, and then you get the explosion there. They are an addition by subtraction situation. Everything you said really nails it down. The one player I think that's not getting enough pub is Wayne Ellington. He's been on the season a 14-team guy, a very low-end 14-team guy, because he's hitting about 3.5 trays a game. But he's been a core piece of why they win games. And now you have Dion Waiters that's gone. Since then, in the last month, he's been a late round guy, about a top 125 guy. That's a lot of stability. There's possibility for erosion at some of his numbers, but it's not a guarantee. He's not like shooting 50%. Like some shooting guards will have 50% first half of the season and then a 30% second half season. He's not that. He's at about 42% from three. Really looking good. And, I had the game-winning dunk the other day, or game-winning putback, or lay-in, I should say. Was it a dunk? I think it was a dunk. I don't know. Anyway, they're good, and I think that the subtraction of Dion Waiters is going to stabilize the whole bunch of them. James Johnson's the only guy that's really been disappointing. I've lost so many games to players being punched or punching. This week was like a kick in the nuts kind of week with, we have a lot of Steph Curry around here. He gets hurt and shoot around, of all things. You got players punching players. I think, though, that might be a turning point for James Johnson. Like, he has been frustrated this season. I think he was frustrated as a result of the log jams. Now the log jam's been eased. He's been able to punch at Serge Ibaka. I think now he'll come back really focused on defense particularly, and getting those money-counting stats that he's known for. Buy low on James Johnson. Like, I can't say that enough. Buy low on James Johnson.
Well, I got to ask about Kelly Olynyk, too, because it seems like, he's still seeing minutes, but it seems like he's doing less with them these days. Is that a function of James Johnson, of Adebayo, of Tyler Johnson doing more, of Josh Richardson doing more? There's still sort of a lot of bodies there. How does he find his niche right now?
I think it's a function of looking like Mitch from Dazed and Confused. He's just an easygoing cat. Like, he doesn't care about production. He does this all the time, and this is something that Eric Spoelstra has been on him for all year, is be aggressive, be aggressive, be aggressive. And when you look at his numbers, on the season, first of all, he's right where we thought he would be in 8 cat leagues as far as getting 23, 24 minutes per game. He's played in 41 games, so he will finish in the ballpark of a top 80 guy if he just simply keeps his current trajectory. So that's where we had him, and I feel pretty good about kind of where we've pegged him as far as a fantasy asset goes. Now, the thing that I think we'll see in the second half of the season is he will get more aggressive as he gets comfortable within that offense. He'll also be, aside from, his own shoulder issues, if he gets another injury that causes him, the team to say, hey, look, we really need you to be a part of the offense now. We need more of these 24-point explosions. Then you're going to start to see even more additional value on top of that. As of right now, he's just a safe late-round guy with a little bit of mid-round upside, which is right where we pegged him. And, as he gets more comfortable, it'll be better than that.
I'm just all jazzed up that Hassan Whiteside finally looks good. That's a difference maker.
Well, I think the dream scenario there is kind of what you've been talking about on Twitter, is that, I'm sure you want Hassan Whiteside to play 30 minutes and be dominant in all 30 minutes. But I've always thought this is a guy whose blocks are key to his value and defensive numbers. Like, get like 26 good minutes out of him. Give the rest of the minutes, at center to Olynyk and Adebayo, and also play both of them at power forward as well. That would be the dream scenario for all involved. You'd get late round production out of Olynyk. You'd get late round production out of Adebayo with some upside beyond that. And then, of course, you'd have Hassan in that early round range with less exposure to injury. I think that would be the win for everybody.
Yeah, it's been nice. Hey, we talked a little bit about injuries. I'm going to do my little Zen thing here on today's show and get your thoughts on that as well in a moment. I do have one more thing on my list, and then we're going to have a discussion about handling injuries from a mental standpoint before we get into questions from the chat room. The New York Knicks are the last team on my list here. Michael Beasley still seems like he's a big part of that thing, and zombie Jarrett Jack triple-doubled earlier this week. He seems like he's doing everything in his zombie power to hold off Frankie Smokes. And then, really, how long can the Beasley thing go?
It could all turn tomorrow for both of them. I was watching that stat tracker game of, Frankie Smokes not getting any minutes and the numbers being really down and Jarrett Jack getting all the run and thinking, oh, man, when is that going to switch? And then with Beasley, when you need scoring, when Tim Hardaway Jr. is in the lineup and you still lack scoring, and then he's out and you really need scoring, you go to a guy like Beasley and kind of just throw caution to the wind. And, there are a lot of people that said Beasley's played great. He's, played a nice floor game. And I just don't know if he's really turned a corner in that regard, or if everybody in New York's just happy to see somebody putting up numbers. Once Hardaway's back, I'm definitely fading Beasley. Beasley is worth owning till we figure out if that's actually correct. So am I going to toss away a top 100 guy to get Beasley? No. Am I going to toss away an upside guy? Like, I probably at this point wouldn't even toss away Bam Adebayo for Michael Beasley, because I want to see the upside in Adebayo. And I think once Tim Hardaway Jr. gets back, you don't have a need for Beasley anymore. Beasley has a laundry list of injuries and history that goes against what we're seeing right now. So I'm fading Beasley. As far as Frank Ntilikina goes, eventually I think they're going to get tired of Jarrett Jack. I just, I get a little gun shy here just because of Hornacek. He's kind of, built out of that Jerry Sloan mold is what we've seen now over the last couple years. Didn't really know what was going on with him in Phoenix. There was some drama there. It was Phoenix. It's Phoenix. Like, look at what Derek Jones Jr. is doing right now. But the issue with Hornacek is, I think what we're realizing is he's kind of one of these older, these play the vets guys, stubborn coach, isn't going to give Frankie Ntilikina the minutes while Jarrett Jack's olaying, every offensive drive that comes his way. I've got Ntilikina everywhere, and I don't think now is the time to jump off that bandwagon. I think that he could be given the reins pretty much any day now, and then be put into that upside position that you've been holding for.
All right, the injury thing. Here's something I talked about on a podcast. I think it was yesterday, although I'll be honest, we do one 5 days a week, so they blend together in my head a little bit. The injury thing. I think that one really nice way to deal with a team that's flooded with injuries, and you guys all know that I've been dealing with that this year. I've twice now hit 8 guys out at the same time. Twice that's happened. 2 separate occasions, like 3 or 4 weeks apart. So it wasn't like, oh, it was 8 and then it was 7, then it went back to 8 again. It was 8 and then it was 1 and then it was 8 again. So I feel your pain. The thing that I do, that I mentioned on, I think it was yesterday's show, was instead of worrying so much about each guy every night, because that's going to drive you totally insane. If you're watching every guy every night, you're like, oh my God, is Steph Curry going to play? By the way, the answer is no tonight. Oh my God, is Kyle Lowry going to play tomorrow? We don't know. That's going to drive you nuts. A nice calming way to deal with this, to kind of ease your tension and actually feel good, is to pick a day a week out or something like that. For me, it was 5 days out. On the 10th, I looked at it and I said, what about MLK Day? So Monday. How many of my guys should realistically be back by Martin Luther King Jr. Day? And I went through the list and I was like, you know what? Out of these 8 guys, probably 5 should easily be back. And maybe 6, even 7 might be playing, like a Zach LaVine. He's supposed to return this weekend. I don't even say how much he's going to play. So does it really count? Maybe. Blake Griffin was a question mark and he came back already. So you pick that day a few days out and in your mind, suddenly it's like, oh, well, if I can just hold on for 5 days, then most of my injured guys should be back. And if they come back earlier, that's awesome. And so now I'm watching all these games, and instead of worrying about every player every day, I'm just assuming they're all out until the 15th. And if somebody says, hey, guess who's playing? Great. I'll pop them into my lineup and feel great about that. But I don't struggle with that mental thing where every day you're like, oh my God, I still have 8 guys out. What idiot am I going to pick up off the wire to try to fill a spot in my lineup today? You just calmly look at that marker. And when you get there, if your guys are back, boom, you're rolling. What do you do when half your team is out? Anything like that?
I mean, you're really kind of striking at what the core of being an analyst or a fantasy analyst, which I hold a fantasy analyst in higher regard than I do most NBA analysts, just because there's money on the line and there's more on the line in general, more attachment. And so as you make all these recommendations, like I live and die through each of these recommendations, to the public at large. If I have a bad one, I kind of obsess over it. And if I have a good one, I kind of forget it, which is, I kind of just count it as the measure of doing business. And so, as you can imagine, if you put that kind of pressure on yourself, even if you're just having fun with it, I mean, you kind of put a level of pressure on yourself to get it right. Otherwise, you're just auto drafting, I would presume. So you're emotionally attached, you're mentally attached. You got all these different things that are bringing you, to make these recommendations. And so then everything goes upside down. You have a bad recommendation, or there's this pivotal recommendation that you're about to make, and it's going to have a lot of weight, and you maybe start to see it go bad, or even conversely, you see it start to go good, and then you ask yourself, okay, do I need to get off the bandwagon and now work against my original recommendation? So all these different things are going on. And especially if it starts to go bad, though, that's the one that can really grip at you. I've found I just detach. I just take my hands off the steering wheel, and I have to consciously do that. And you have to do that, I think, all the time is kind of recognize your biases and then try to put everything through the appropriate filter. And then, actually make an objective assessment on players and what's going on. It's hard. It's, we have about 10 of these guys every year where they're kind of higher profile, bigger name predictions for the site. And so I think whatever your thing is that you do, like yours is looking ahead in the schedule, just being cognizant of the idea of that there is a bias going on, or that there is something that you need to do to not go crazy and trade your whole team or drop somebody or add somebody. You really just kind of got to maybe go take a walk or something, like you were talking and I was sitting there going, oh man, Steph Curry had a 4-game week. And what is this crap? I was literally having those thoughts as you were talking just now and reading through the Twitter feed and kind of getting caught up on Steph Curry.
Yep, it's easy to.
I had to just back. I was like, okay, I'm gonna stop thinking about that one for a while. And you know, your method's a good one. Think about, you know, a week or two from now when you're getting these massive lines.
Yeah, guess what? He'll probably be back by Monday. So my target is still A-OK on the Steph side. I think it's so nice to be able to kind of and Steph is a good example of that. It's a stupid injury. He tweaked his ankle during shoot around. It's easy to get caught up in that. And yeah, he's not playing tonight. And oh my God, will he play tomorrow? It's a back-to-back. He's got all these big games coming up.
Look at us. We got hit with Mirotic getting punched by a teammate and losing 6 weeks. It wasn't that he was our top guy. It was just that we had him across so many rosters that now you're carrying this weight. You know, it's just one little weight on your leg dragging behind you.
You know what would have been easier is instead of getting caught up in all the notes and rumors and weird stories, if we had just put a little marker on our calendar, oh, let's look at like, you know, beginning of December, and then let's see what's going on, and we check in at that point, would have been a whole lot easier on the psyche.
For non-playoff, to argue the counterpoint, for non-playoff leagues, roto leagues, or even if you're just in a competitive playoff league or need to do well to get into the playoffs, you know, like a top 4 advanced type situation, you do have to be sober about it. You can't just put your head in the sand and say things will be better in February and then ignore January and all the preceding months. In that particular case, though, we were able to kind of detach from the crappiness of the situation and say, let's not follow all of these things that are going to say he's terrible and he's going overseas or he's this or he's that. We were able to kind of hang on there, and it's been working out. Yeah. And that's really that is the nexus of fantasy decision making. Every question we have in our wonderful forums where people should keep going, and the community there is awesome. People are getting questions answered there. Every question there has some sort of component of that. Should I drop this really good player to get this really good player, or should I do this to that? And you know, you get attached to your projections. I just read something last night about if you like sign a petition for some inane topic, whatever it may be, and you're not even like, you sign it because the person like. You just sign it to get out of the situation. Like you're like, oh yeah, I'll just sign that, whatever, get out of my face. You are more likely by some insane factor to then agree with that topic later on down the road. It's a form of being attached to your previously held beliefs. And it's, so if you ever want to nerd out on that stuff, you know, that is actually a really big deal in any sort of predictive field, or even in the world that we're in today.
Man, did deep dive today on Fantasy NBA.
Oh, yeah.
It's good stuff. I'm not advocating ignoring your fantasy team for 5 days. I'm just advocating not watching that one individual player's day-to-day where it's like at 3:30 p.m.
It's like punching yourself in the face.
Yeah, just like try to ignore that willy won't he thing, and then just try to believe that in that 5-day span, you'll probably have him back. All right, let's get to questions from the chat room. We've got a lot of them, Bruce. So
I get numbered up. Don't worry.
You loosen up because I'm putting you in the lightning round right out of the chute. I don't think we're going to get through all these unless we go maximum lightning, because it is a lot. So I'm going to do my best to have the next one ready to go after your answer to the previous question. But there may be a couple of moments on today's pod where I'm going, there's a question. So get ready for that. Hello, Jim. Hello, Prime T. You guys were first ones in the chat room, so you get your questions answered first. Prime T says, Raptors questions. We actually hit a bunch of those already. And DeMar DeRozan is actually one of the few Raptors we didn't hit on. He's doing a little bit more this year. Is he a sell high, a buy low, or is this just sort of, this is DeMar, enjoy it?
Yeah, I think that's the case. We talked a little bit earlier in the show about certain changes that he's made to his game, and I would say that the overall result hasn't been too different. But yeah, this is him. For better or worse. I wouldn't call him a sell high or a buy low.
We got a kind of a series of Kings questions from our buddy Andre. So I'm gonna take you out of the lightning round just for a moment here, and you can have a nice full minute if you so desire. Bogey's playing better. George Hill came back and actually played 30 some odd minutes and did a few things last night. Zebo is kind of here and there. Willie Cauley-Stein. Give me the quick rundown on your favorite Kings going forward.
I think the Kings have gotten a little bit simpler for me. The Kings that I want on rosters are Bogdanovic, probably primarily Bogdanovic, even though there might be higher upside guys, I guess. Hield's probably got more upside than Bogdanovic because his shooting stat and also his propensity to go out there and just get crazy, like a little mini Tyreek Evans. Don't at me, Sacramento fans, especially now that Tyreek can shoot. Don't at me. The other guy I want there is Willie Cauley-Stein, and the defensive stats haven't been great, and I don't think he's that type of player anymore. He kind of reminds me of Tom Chambers. Don't at me. Those three guys are the ones that I want on my teams because I think they're going to be the most consistent producers down the stretch, and I think Hield has top 50 upside. So your buy low offer right now is for Buddy Hield. I think there's a lot of heat right now on Bogdanovic. He's looked great. He's probably the Kings' best player. George Hill, I think, the baby thing. His wife had a 10-pound baby. That's amazing.
Big one.
What's that?
That's a big one.
That's a big one. And so it's an excusable absence. And I do think that they want him to play well heading into the break so they could possibly trade him. That would be a great idea. Though Frank Mason's, out for 4 to 6 weeks, or probably weeks, not weeks. That will open up the door for De'Aaron Fox, who's, again, another one that you want on the team. My concern about Fox is his stat set, the efficiency numbers. He's terrible with Zebo on the floor. And so everybody's offense in Sacramento goes to crap with Zebo on the floor because Zebo just runs around demanding the ball in the middle of the paint, and it's very obvious. They've got some issues, I think, where the team is starting to get a little frustrated with Zebo on the floor. That's just my read on it. I don't have any inside information there. But the next third, probably the middle third of this season, which is pretty much, let's say about 20 more games here, might get a little bit hairy for owners because they're still relying on Zebo. They're not willing to go away from Zebo. But that last third of the season should be sweet for all the aforementioned guys. And I know I took 3 minutes, Dan, but at least you got the rest of your questions all queued up.
That's right. I got a few ready to go. Back into the lightning round we move. Lonzo Ball, he's been playing a little bit better these days. Do you like his outlook? I mean, I guess that's a loaded question. Rest of season value. Why don't we switch it to that?
The Lakers were really terrible with how they handled this thing, but they played their hand. They're not giving up on Lonzo Ball. Like they're gonna keep feeding him the rock and let him make asinine statements to the media about his father. Sorry that your dad's a chump, but stand up and be your own man, Lonzo Ball. You're old enough for that. And as far as his fantasy value goes, while they have his back unconditionally, to the detriment of their franchise, he will be able to get the breathing room to make a bunch of mistakes and put up big games and follow them up with slow games and then put up more big games. I think as a fantasy asset, he's looking great.
Larry Nance, where do you see him falling in this thing? He finally had a better game again last night, and Julius Randle basically didn't play.
Man, this is an ugly, ugly situation, but I do think that Nance probably gets more consistent and does the Larry Nance thing that we've seen for a while now. But this trade deadline is also like Nance, Clarkson, and Randle. I think Randle's the most likely to go. Clarkson probably after that, and then Nance. All three are great assets. It'll be interesting to see what the Lakers can parlay out of those three. And when you have a team like Randle, for instance, we talked about this I think last week or on Monday. He looks so unhappy there. I think that there's a potential for this team to get really rocky heading into the trade deadline. Nance being the most consistent of the bunch. I probably don't get off of his annual top 100 rating when healthy, so I guess I'll just stay on that. Nance, top 100 rating.
Brook Lopez, hold or drop?
Hold.
Henson versus Biyombo for the next 2 to 4 weeks.
You know what? I was wondering why we haven't heard more Dan Besbris chirping about John Henson. It's a little disappointing. He's been so great. Like he's consistent. 14 and 8 or something in 2 blocks. What's not to like about that?
I don't know. I wanted like crazy John. I wanted young John Henson that didn't give a flying hoot about his personal fouls and just went out there and tried to block 11 shots in 20 minutes. I miss Crazy John.
He's old now.
I know. Anyway, who do you like between those two? Is it John?
Oh yeah, it's John.
This has been oddly decent. If Mirotic ends up on the Utah Jazz and their litany of small forwards and shooting guards stays put, does he have any impact on those smaller guys like an Ingles or a Tabo or whoever?
Yeah, I think he has an impact on Tabo. I think he has an impact keeping Joe Johnson from having kind of these explosive games. I mean, both Tabo and Joe probably go into 20-minute per game type roles. Maybe that creeps over into Ingles' bucket if he's, for whatever reason, like, slow or not getting it done. I think the stuff with Joe Ingles is probably more directly tied to Donovan Mitchell at this point. Mitchell is, still feeling the outer bounds of what his game is. You're starting to see some efficiency issues creep in there as well. I think other teams are trying to figure out, what do you do with Donovan Mitchell? When you're a rookie and nobody's seen you, they just kind of like don't even try to figure you out. And then all of a sudden you've dropped a couple 30-point games, start showing up on scouting reports. And now you start to see teams react. And is this guy like Donovan Mitchell able to pivot out of that? And you start to see the overall health of a team start to suffer a little bit. And I think with Smoke and Joe, that's part of what we've seen going on there. And he's also played a lot of minutes. So I'm good with Smoke and Joe in general. I would say this is always a buy low moment for Smoke and Joe. And then as far as Mirotic coming in and etching away at other people's value, I wouldn't predict an etching of Smoke and Joe's value. I would predict that he hits these older cats. And, somebody like Epe Udo, kind of goes back to irrelevant.
That was a lot of lightning.
Yeah, sorry, dog.
In a dynasty league wanting to win this moment, would you trade Frankie Smokes and Kelly Oubre for Isaiah Thomas?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait. Yeah. I would want IT in that. Yeah.
For a win now. Jabari Parker, are you picking him up now? And what's his rest of season outlook ranking wise?
I don't have any problem picking him up now. I think his rest of season outlook is something in the top 75. His upside is top 75. Don't get caught up on anything else. Like top 75 at best.
Because of that ramp up, really. I mean, that takes such a big chunk out of
it. Remember, Eric Bledsoe wasn't there last year. That's a big piece. Like he's taking a lot of production.
Middleton was out for a long stretch as well. Who would you rather stash, Frankie Smokes or Markelle Fultz?
Frankie Smokes. He's not mentally questionable.
Kuzma, sell high or hold until somebody gets traded? Oh, I broke Bruski.
I think that Kuzma is like, I might wait and buy low on Kuzma. Just the way this is all shaping up, I think that the Lakers might really tank the last part of the season.
But they can't fully tank because if they have the 2nd through the 5th pick, it goes to the Boston Celtics. So they're an anti-tank terrible team. It's weird. They're in a weird spot. But I actually agree with you, not for the tanking reason, but just because I think when they clear out some space,
I think that they're clearing the deck, like that they've got a big free agency plan in order, and part of that is getting rid of some assets and becoming attractive to. And this is probably some of the issues with the Lakers not really knowing what they're doing. Is like let's say you trade these guys and you bring in veteran players, like, what does that do to your free agency pitches? Like, what if those veteran players aren't guys that, players XYZ want to play with? I think the smart thing for the Lakers to do is to try to get as many assets as you can get for these young players in the forms of draft picks. Then you can pitch to free agents. I've got this, and this down the road, come join our organization. And so then the question is how does this relate to winning now? Like, are they going to fall into that range that you're talking about where the pick gets lost? That's very, very non-lightning round stuff, but it's fascinating at the same time.
Yeah, we got a ways to go. We're gonna do this.
I think Kuzma is the star of the show. I don't think they're getting rid of him, and I think that might be the guy that they pin their hopes on to win ball games.
Dillon Wright versus Frankie Smokes versus Markelle Fultz. We added him to that mix. Who do you rather have?
That sounds like a Tiberius question. I'm gonna go Frankie Smokes. Fultz is at the bottom, and who was my other option? Oh, Dillon Wright's in the middle.
Donovan Mitchell, rest of season ranking. Where do you see him?
Top 75.
Zach LaVine, do you try to trade him after his first good game? I actually say no on this one because I think it's going to be a slow ramp up for him.
Yeah, that's I would agree with that.
Let's see here. We got a nice little discussion going on in the chat room about the Jabari Parker, Dillon Wright situation, and it seems like they've got a pretty good thing going on. Someone in the chat room letting us know that Steph Curry and Gary Harris are both out again tonight. But don't worry, everybody. It's cool. Take a deep breath. Marquise Chris is out, so it's Dragon Bender time. Movie Dude says, tell Bruski to upgrade his Commodore 64. I actually have a story about that, but it's not really lightning round. I'll tell it on another one. We talked about Milos Teodosic. We talked about Nico Mirotic. Hey, my tinfoil hat had to come off. Nico and Derek Favors are both supposed to play in their next ball games, huh? That's less fun.
Yeah, I like conspiracy theories better, Dan.
Yeah, I agree. Any deep league upside for Stanley Johnson? Here we go. We got through some of this Jabari stuff. Good discussion, guys, by the way.
No.
The question that I had to unhide before, which was not even remotely dirty, was, is your shirt a hidden message, Bruski? Should we add Danilo Gallinari for the fantasy playoffs?
I would. I mean, like, especially if everything goes to hell there, he's the type of player that they could just plug in and be like, hey, be the entire offense.
Clint Capella versus Miles Turner for the rest of this season.
Man, we've had that question in the past. Turner just feels snake bitten. That dunk injury is
unbelievable.
Not something that here's the thing. That's an example where we were talking about earlier. You might be like, oh, Miles Turner's killing me. And you might get caught up in stuff that doesn't matter. Like, that was a dunk injury. So the question is the dunk is going to hurt him, long term? The answer to that's probably no. But I just think that Capella has been so damn consistent that you got to want to have that over the upside of Miles Turner. There's just not enough margin there to change that decision.
Tim Hardaway versus Reggie Jackson in a dynasty format.
Tim Hardaway.
We got a Jermichael Green question, which we actually hit earlier on in the program. Emmanuel Mudiay, is he ever going to play again? Like, forever?
Emmanuel Mudiay. Very interesting stuff going on there, I'd say. I don't know. He needs a change of scenery big time.
Iron Sports says, I'm new here. What are the 3 money counting stats? The chat room actually took care of that, but threes, blocks, and steals is the answer to that question, because they are generally tougher to come by, and you can have a bigger impact on your team with fewer of them. I love it, man. I love starting the year slowly in blocks and then like getting a couple of sneaky blocks guys and jumping like 7 points in a roto league with like one guy that blocks shots. It's an unbelievable power to have. Same guy's got a second question. Mike Conley, is he worth stashing? Every time it sounds like he's going to come back, he doesn't.
I mean, yeah, he's worth stashing. He does look like he's closer to a return. It feels like an agent knows that they're going to crap, and they're just saying, hey, man, maybe just chill back a little bit. Make sure you're 100% healthy.
Connor, our buddy, has a non-lightning round question, so I'm going to say it out loud, but then I'm also going to tell you, Connor, to put it in the forum because we're in the lightning round, so I don't want to give you a crummy short answer. The question is, how do you guys evaluate injury risk guys? And do you think that going into drafts, injury concerns are overrated? Big, important question. Please do cut and paste that bad boy into the Hoopball forums. I promise we will get to answering that via the written word later on today. It's good stuff, and it's something that we do talk about a lot leading up to drafts as well. but we're not going to hit on it on today's show. It's just, I mean, that could take a half hour to go through that. It's its own show, really. We got another Ntilikina question, Charleston. Check out earlier in the program. We hit on that as well. Rodney Hood, is he a guy that you're owning in any leagues?
No, just bad stat set, injury risk, slaps phones out of people's hands. Not
so.
Apparently, that dude totally chumped out and is like suing for pain and suffering and emotional hurt.
Well, maybe they can take some of the $35,000 they're fining Rodney Hood and buy that dude a new phone. TJ Warren versus Karis LeVert rest of season. I'm hard on the Warren side for that one.
Yeah. Karis LeVert is a non-lightning round issue, but yeah, no. TJ Warren.
Too much. There's still, oh man, the LeVert thing. God, there's a lot of hype around the popcorn stats, but there's like 6 turnovers when he gets
minus 30 the other night.
Yeah, it's brutal. But now that's like the thing people forget about.
On Spencer Dinwiddie. Just everybody. I low on Spencer Dinwiddie. You know where we're at.
Oh man. Yeah, LeVert as a dynasty asset, that came up in the chat room. That's not a terrible idea as well. Let's see. Hoop Ball Dino guys having a conversation in the thing. If you want to talk more about Spencer Dinwiddie while I'm finding the next question, you can feel free.
Yeah, he had a really bad game on Wednesday, I think, and just the entire team played poorly. And Karis LeVert had 6 turnovers and was like a minus 30, and the team shot 36%, I think, if I recall, and they were basically not converting on any Dinwiddie passes, so his assists were down. He didn't get any steals or blocks, which are a stat that you can have that happen in. But yeah, he's it's funny. He's been getting fouled left and right, and he's been starting to chirp up, and now he's got a couple profiles written about him. Apparently a really smart dude. Not shocking with the way he runs that offense.
Oh, did you see the when he looked directly into the baseline camera and said, "That's what I'm talking about"? That's hilarious.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've been talking about it for 3 weeks, so it's not like if you don't go through our Twitter feeds that you don't see like, damn, this guy gets no calls. And
I think Brooklyn's going to put the hell out of Atlanta, by the way.
Like, yeah, that happened with Isaiah. Like at some point in time, the refs were like, okay, we're giving you calls now. And then all of a sudden it became 30-point Isaiah Thomas, and that is, it's key to your percentages. It's key to so much fantasy value. So when that switch flips, that's just hidden upside for you guys. In addition to the fact that I don't think anybody in Brooklyn wants to put D'Angelo Russell into Spencer Dinwiddie's role. It'll come at the expense of Karis LeVert. Maybe Dinwiddie goes down to 28 minutes, but really do we care? 28 versus whatever he's playing right now, 30. It's going to be no big deal.
All right, if there are more questions coming in, this is where I got to cut it off.
Where Dan draws the line, people.
Yeah, sorry, guys. We got a lot of them. We do have a few more. I also wanted to say that if I was a betting man, and there was a time when I was a betting man, I think Brooklyn's going to beat the pants off of Atlanta tonight. Just like a total undressing. The Hawks,
do I need to drive to Reno, Dan?
You might. The Hawks are coming back home off a long road trip. Brooklyn is coming in off an embarrassing home loss.
Oh, yikes.
And they're catching 3 points in Atlanta. Hawks.
Oh, yikes. Man.
I like me some Brooklyn. Will Mirotic in Utah keep the same numbers or close to the Chicago stats? Now, I'll take a step back. We don't know that he's in Utah yet. But Brew and I actually had a long conversation about this, and the conclusion we came to was that scoring probably stays pretty close. Rebounding may come down a tiny bit just because of guys like Gobert who can actually go get a rebound. Tyrone Wallace, is he getting extended to a full season contract? He's actually looked pretty good for the Clippers so far.
It's kind of a tough one. I would say maybe. I don't know. Probably.
Nick Batum, any hope for him getting it going this year? You guys all know how I feel about the Charlotte Hornets.
I think that there's something in the water there. I mean, you got coaches coming back that might trigger something, but really, I think this there's nothing to play for if Kemba Walker's the piece of meat, being discussed as a trade asset for the Raptors, as he should be. So why would you, if you're Batum, push through this injury? Jeremy Lamb, hard hold, buy low type stuff. Batum, I don't think he's going to be the Batum you thought you were getting on draft day.
Yeah, I call it Dwight Howard-itis, but yeah, maybe worse than that. Let's see. JaMychal Green and Brook Lopez both have 4 games next week. Which would you play between the two?
Hey, give me Brook Lopez.
Yeah, I think I'd probably go that way too. Let's see. What do we got? Domantas Sabonis. Can he keep up his recent little push here?
As long as Miles Turner's out, he's going to do exactly that.
Yeah. Jared Allen, rest of season numbers.
This next month might be rough. They're going to see what they have in Okafor. They're going to find out that it's not good. After that, they're going to go to Jared Allen, and then you'll see more of the struggles for Okafor, maybe with a new team even.
Greg Monroe, are you stashing him through the trade deadline?
I still have him on rosters. I'm just like, I don't want to see that on somebody else's roster in 2 weeks because I was not patient enough to wait 2 weeks. That's my big thing right now.
Andre Drummond versus Clint Capella, rest of season.
Give me Capella.
Kelly Olynyk versus James Johnson, rest of season. The intra-Miami fantasy question.
The intra-hoopball 6 question. No, I'm going to take James Johnson. It's not close.
And finally, the last question on the docket, and I saved this one because it's funny. If you have a relative who's a cheap ass and didn't want to pay up for a hoop ball or a Basketball Monster subscription and constantly asks you for advice, do you railroad him and give him horrible advice? He's a listener of the show. Thanks, David. That's a good one to end on. Bruski, what are your thoughts?
Never, man. Never. You never know who that customer is. They could be the best thing that ever happened to you. So you treat everybody the same. You give the best advice, and you always give your best.
That's right. That's the perfect way to end the program. Brew, have a lovely weekend.
Thank you, sir. You do the same.
I will definitely do so. He is Aaron Bruski. I'm Dan Besbris. Again, you can find us on Twitter at Aaron Bruski, at Dan Besbris. Go follow at Hoopball Fantasy. Give a thumbs up to this YouTube video if you like it. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you like the podcast, of course, take a moment, hop on over to iTunes and rate and review that bad boy. Brew will be back with you. Premium subs. He's got the Waiver Wire show on Sunday evening. And then Aaron and I will talk to you together. Premium show, the weekly waiver show on Monday. This program, of course, Fantasy NBA Today, returns on Monday with reverse chronological lightning round. And then next week's a fun one because Tuesday, we got the Welsh. Wednesday, we got Bogman.
Whoa.
Thursday, we got Seth Klein. And Friday, of course, it's you, Aaron. It's you. We got guests.
Damn, Besbris, what you trying to do? Break the internet? I like it.
I am attempting to break the internet, and that's all I got. That, I think, is where we put the bow in this bad boy. He's Aaron. I'm Dan. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.